I'm going to gradually get into the other bodies that expand outward. Energy, if you don't know, likes to expand outwards. So we have energy that expands outwards, and we call this the human biofield. So we get blockages in these different bodies, or at least we associate it with these different bodies as a way of really identifying what's going on with ourselves. For instance, we have like psychological disorders, right? We'll have emotional issues with our emotional well-being, right? We'll also have like physical issues. And then we have other issues that are like so small to pinpoint, but they're causing such a big effect on us. And the way we identify these things more effectively, in my opinion, is by looking at which part of you it's affecting, whether it be mentally, emotionally, maybe even spiritually. Physically is pretty obvious. So I like to look at the different ways blockages can really affect us. I can see how blockages really affect us from when they're starting to how it's going to play out later. And I think that's a part of me being able to see these blockages. Sometimes when I meet people, depending on how much they're letting me in or how much we're exchanging energy in some way, I'll be able to see more and more of the blockages within a person. And not that I'm like judging them, you know, because I have blockages too, but I'll see them more and more and more. And I just have like I have this like desire to want to like kind of pick it off of them, or like not fix it, but like I want to bring their attention to it. And it's not good to always do that, but sometimes it's like when it's so obvious to you because you're doing it for so long, you just want to be able to like, you know, inform someone like, oh, all right, how's that going for you? Is that going okay? And then they'll be like, oh, I haven't noticed. And you're just like, oh, okay. So and it's just really interesting to like get into energetic blockages in general and how these things really affect us. So I'm going to talk about etheric blockages first, because the etheric body is closely connected to the physical body, and these types of blockages are very unique to me. I think it's very interesting to be able to see etheric blockages, especially because since it's so close to the human form, it's going to be the first thing that really affects a person or an animal or something. And etheric blockages, they're always going to somehow affect us. But there is a way to either prevent a lot of them from affecting you, or to remove them, to dissolve them. It's energy, and energy is like super mutable, so we can always change the energy if we decide to have an awareness towards it. Because the moment you're aware, you have an awareness towards energy, you have this power to change it, to transmute it, and to like do whatever you want with it, since you're observing that energy. And I know that we call energy particles photons, and I'll just call it photons because it's so much easier to just identify it as something, so then people can catch my drift. But when it comes to photons, we, as the observer, we change and shift these photons based on how we're observing it. So we can observe things however we want, but there's always going to be this energetic, the true energetic signature behind it. And I call this the energetic integrity of something. And I call it that not because of the integrity and the honesty of the energy, like the honest truth of that energy is the integrity, the energetic integrity of the energy, not what I'm observing, but what it is. So that's what I call it. But when you're able to see how energy kind of plays out, and you are able to see the energetic integrity of the energy versus what you're observing it as, it gives you more leverage on how to like maneuver yourself through that energy, because we all have the ability to use the energy how we please. So just because you're using energy a certain way doesn't mean other people are going to, and doesn't mean that the energy actually is a certain way. You could just be observing it that way. But what I've noticed about a lot of the etheric blockages and other blockages is that whether we identify it or see it or however we want to view it, the energy is just playing out as energy, always. Energy itself isn't biased. It's doing what it is doing. The only thing that makes it biased is our observation towards it and how we rationalize it. So that's what I think is really interesting about getting into energetics for healing. So let's get into the etheric body. So the etheric body is closely connected to the physical form. And it's like this form that is you, except it's not super physical. So it is all of your organs. It's like the outline of all your organs, your features, all of that, but it's just this non-physical form. And what happens is that this is your energy. Like, you have this dense energy to hold the physical form together. Without this form, you wouldn't have been able to manifest physically, is what I'm saying. It's because the energetic density was vibrating at such a frequency, or it's vibrating so much that it's able to make something solid, which is you. And so the etheric body is you and all of your organs, and it's very strong in its energetic signature. Your signature has a lot to do with your individual spirit's nature. So your spirit isn't really doing anything other than just being. And I can't really label like what a spirit is. And we call a soul because it's the spirit's individual way of being. So enough of that. Your etheric, how you maneuver in your physical body, and the energy you have within your etheric body depends on the individual soul, the soul you have, and what you usually lean towards doing, and all of the things that you gravitate towards, and all the energy that you pull towards you is because of the nature of your soul, or the nature of your spirit, and what you tend to attract. And your etheric body, since it's attracting certain things towards it, or maybe away from it, or it just has its own energetic integrity based on your spirit, it tends to also attract certain blockages that kind of just fly into it and stay nestled within that energy, all that great energy that you just harness within you. There are things out there that either get caught in there or want to live off of it, or just need it to survive. And it's not to hurt you normally. Yes, you can have energy blockages that are targeted at you, and they can harm you. But when it comes to a lot of blockages that are etheric, it is just playing out as its own energy. So if it's trying to survive or to get through life somehow, it's just going to do that. And just as you're a spirit and you're just being, these things are just being, and that's just their way of being. The energetic integrity of those things is to just be and to survive somehow. And that's what we do. But because we have these things that are attracted to us, and they do like to use our energy for themselves, we have to find a way to somehow get these energies off of us if we don't want it to manifest or play out into our lives somehow. Usually these energies, since they're connected to the etheric body, it'll somehow play out physically for us. So before it manifests outside of us, it manifests it inside. So let's say I have something that is trying to manifest within me, like some kind of energy blockage. I want to say like an energy blockage that leaves me to like have some kind of blockage from my physical fluids from flowing. Maybe just blood, like a blood clot, for instance. I could have had an energetic block within my etheric body, and then with the influence of that energetic blockage, the cells, the smallest particles within my body, and all the photons, whatever they are, whatever is observing that energy within me, like the cells and the other organisms that are within me, they're going to start circulating or trying to do something with this energy, trying to either transmute it to clear it because it's not good for me, or trying to somehow, I guess, manifest it. But either way, the attention that it pays towards that center is making it more real. It's creating this vibration that creates a density. So it's like pumping the density of that energy to be harder and harder, and eventually it becomes like a dense blockage for me. And that's how things can play out in the etheric body. We can have this happen outside of us as well. It doesn't have to happen inside of us necessarily, but you can have something like a etheric block that gets, let's say, caught in your head, and then gradually you start feeling like you're blocked from being able to express your creativity, and then you feel like you can't have a free flow of creativity just circulating within you. Maybe you did before, and then now all of a sudden you just can't. So this can also be blocked, or a etheric block that causes some kind of like mental block, or it can also cause an emotional block if you become attached to the fact that you're not able to generate creative ideas. So that can start blocking you emotionally, because then you feel a certain way from not being able to actually perform in the same expectation as you wanted to in the beginning. So that's how your body reacts to etheric blockages. Etheric blockages come in all various shapes and sizes, so it's really hard for me to tell you what specific ones do what. They can do anything, and when I'm doing like etheric removals, which I don't do anymore as much as I was getting into at first, only because I'm realizing how much simpler it is to get rid of etheric blockages with other methods that are more effective than me just being able to see it and somehow like tweak the energy and dissolve it. It's a lot easier to just try to get someone's vibration on a certain level, like their full body on a certain vibration. So then those things don't even really resonate. They just either fall off, or they burn away, or they just don't attach themselves to begin with. I'll talk more about that. But when it comes to etheric blockages and how they attach themselves, it is because of the energetic signature that you have that is in resonance with the energetic signature that it is looking to hone in on. Like it needs that specific kind of energy to hone in on it. And you can see this play out with like people too, which is kind of interesting, because it's like you have a certain vibration, so then people will gravitate towards you for that vibration. And sometimes, you know, you get those kinds of people that want to harness in on your energy, and they just want to like harvest it for themselves. And it's you can call those energy vampires, but yeah, you end up attracting certain people, and based on your awareness towards it, you're able to like set boundaries and like set restrictions and limits off of like who and what you allow in your space. And the same goes for like energy blockages. It's just harder to do that sometimes when it's happening within you, and you think that whatever is happening to you, you start to base your identity off of that. So you start thinking it is you, and it makes it harder to dissolve those things. And then especially when it becomes when there's physical representations of that playing out outside of you, it creates your identity. You shift your identity to be based off of the things that you are manifesting outside of you, and you start to believe that like you can't move because you have all this now. You know, I can't do these things because I have all these things physically in front of me. I have all these physical factors now, and I have to worry about this and this and that. But really, those are just representations of all the blockages that were probably just happening within in the first place. Whew. So that's how etheric blockages can play out, and it can resonate outside of you because energy just tends to expand outwards. So that's the nature of energy. It just wants to like it takes a form. It likes to take a form. You know, it connects with. It tries to build up more and more and more energetic density to create something. Like not intentionally to create something. It is intentionally in a sense, but it's not with the idea of like to serve a purpose. It's just doing what energy does. And just as we were born, and we were just starting off as like a thought in someone's head, possibly, you know, maybe we were just a thought in someone's head and then we were born 9 months later. It can be just as simple as that with energy. Just something that happens etherically first, and then eventually it manifests. So let's talk about the emotional body, because when it comes to the emotional body, since it's like, well, just to recap a little bit, we all know what the physical body is and what that entails, so I'm not really going to get into the physical body. So yeah, let's get into the emotional body. The emotional body, of course, you can imagine, has a lot to do with your emotions and how you handle your emotions, or just how you are with your emotions, your like emotional, energetic signature. So for me, my emotional energetic signature is to be like, I guess like more open. Like I usually have an open heart, so I attract a lot of people that tell me their problems, or they'll feel comfortable telling me certain things, and it's like you can kind of just feel from my energy signature that I can be trusted. I don't know what it is about me. Sometimes people say that I remind them of their cousin or like their niece or something. So you have a certain energetic signature too, and so does your emotional body. It has a emotional energetic signature where people feel some kind of connection with you, or feel either like they can connect with you or they can't. And if someone feels like they can't, or you're not able to connect with other people, or you're having trouble expressing your emotions, or you're having trouble just being vulnerable with your emotions, like you could have blockages that prevent you from having that free flow of energy in that body. So for me, for instance, like if I'm feeling like depressed, I'm going to be mostly blocked off from exchanging energy with anything else outside of me until I feel like I have enough energy within my emotional body to share it again. Maybe I just don't want to like contaminate other people with my depression, right? Not saying that you're going to contaminate people with your depression, but it just depends on how you see it. Maybe I just don't want to exchange it, and I just need to like hone in on what I feel blocked on within me before I share all that energy outward. And when it comes to the emotional body, like since we all have our unique like signatures, it does depend on the spirit. Once again, like it depends on your spirit and what you've in a sense like accomplished spiritually at a spiritual level for your individual soul. Like what have you been able to like do to level up your spirit and your soul? However you are as a individual spirit is how well you're able to contain yourself within your emotional body or your mental body, even your etheric body. But for the emotional bodies and the blockages there, it can be blockages that either keep you from feeling. You can have imbalances that keep you from being able to handle emotions or other people's emotions or your emotions correctly, or not even correctly, just being able to like deal, just being able to deal with emotions. If you're not able to, and it makes you uncomfortable or makes you feel off-centered in some way, like you're not able to stabilize yourself emotionally when you're dealing with emotions, then that's an indication that you can have an imbalance within you that's keeping you from being able to like understand or resonate with other people. And with the blockages here, like it can be very hard to know, especially because like we usually have blockages that you can't see. Like these blockages were almost like conditioned within us. So we see these things and we think it's normal because we have a connection. We have like an emotional connection towards how we process our emotions, or what kind of emotions we should have, or we'll feel bad for having certain emotions. We'll block ourselves from having certain emotions because we feel so bad about it. And just having a lot of shame and guilt, or like having pride in certain things, like all these things can really block your ability to be able to process your own and other people's emotions. And so the emotional blockages can look like the people in your life. It's very simple. Like you can emotionally attach to anything. It's not really the same as like etheric blockages. Like you can be emotionally attached to like an etheric energy. Yes, it all starts etherically, but the representation of it, because the emotional body is already expanded more outside of you, you have more of a potential to attach yourself to something that maybe can't reciprocate. You have more of a potential to attach yourself to people that either love you or hate you. You can have, the emotional body can resonate on hate. You know, it can, love and hate, almost one and the same. Any kind of emotion, the emotional body either attaches to. That's why someone can hate you, you still emotionally attach to that. Even if it's not good for you, you emotionally attach to it because it still triggers that emotional body. So the blockages can just come from outside of you. And representations of that can be found within you. You can find out that the reason why you have an emotional attachment towards something that is blocking you, like it could actually be stagnating your growth, but you could have a emotional attachment towards something that is not good for you because of an issue with some kind of like, I want to say etheric blockage that was almost like generated within your heart space. Like, I'll put it into better words. So let's say I have an emotional attachment to my sister, who is like a awesome example. And I do have a sister that's an awesome example. But let's say I have a very strong attachment to this person, and she may not feel emotional attachment to me in that same way. But let's say that because of the fact that from a young age, she was the one to like raise me, for instance, like let's just make it up. Let's say she was the one to like put so much hope and faith into me and raise me and make sure I was doing well. All of that created some kind of like impact within me. Like actually, like I grew up with this energy within me because it is just how I was conditioned. Because of that, now when I meet other people who have maybe the same energy, or maybe not even the same energy, maybe they have an opposite energy, completely opposite, I'll have an emotional attachment towards either that person for being like her or for being so far from her because it just makes me angry. So you can see how that attachment can start from within you, yes, but then now I'm able to attach to things outside of me and somehow emotionally resonate with it because of that connection. So emotional blockages really work in a very unique way, especially because emotions, they're very real and they can't be measured. Like you can't put it on a scale and weigh it, but we know the weight because we can feel it. We feel it. And it's like this body, it's the part of the human biofield that resonates outside of you. So it's like when you do feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, yes, you do feel the weight of the world on your shoulders because you're feeling that energy. You're feeling that energy for what it is. You're feeling the integrity of feeling the actual weight of the world on your shoulders. And however we rationalize those emotions or that feeling is all based on the mental body. So this is when things get a little tricky, in my opinion, because the next layer is the mental body. And the mental body, you can either not attach emotions with the mental body, or you can. It depends on the individual spirit. But when it comes to the mental body, it's all about just like common sense, what makes sense, what you know, what is like happening, what things kind of just are. Maybe even if maybe if it isn't even truly that, it still appears to be, so that's what you rationalize it as. And the mental body can be blocked because of emotions, but it can also just be blocked because you have a narrow way of seeing things, or maybe you don't have much wisdom and knowledge on things, so you can feel blocked. So either you can't make it, let's say you can't make a decision because you feel too emotionally attached to the things you're trying to make a decision about. Well, you can have a mental block that is due to an emotional block, which could be due to like an etheric block. Or you can have like a mental block because you're narrow-minded and there's not enough, like, you don't have enough information on those things to really have a say on it. You know, you don't have enough wisdom and knowledge to have an actual like rational opinion, or some kind of, you're not able to logically see something because you're just blocked mentally. And it could just be due to not having enough experience, not enough knowledge, not enough logic, not enough of it. And I see a lot of the times the emotional body, like imbalances within the emotional body, can affect your ability to really tune into the mental body, the way that it can be used. And then sometimes people are too much in the mental body and they're not using enough of the emotional body. And so it's very hard to really say where it starts, because it can start in either one. But sometimes when the emotional body is blocked, let's say someone wasn't able to really express their emotions when they were younger, maybe they were just conditioned to not express any emotions, then they are forced to use the mental body without properly developing that emotional body. So all they know is how to fill space within the mental body and to rationalize everything and for things to make sense and to not have to put emotions behind it. Or if someone was just like not able to think for themselves in that way, and they were emotionally attached to everything instead of logically rationalizing things, then they can find themselves like using too much of the emotional body. And the emotions, you know, if you make decisions off of emotions solely, then you can make some very irrational decisions, and it can cause all different other physical blocks in your life, right? But with the mental body, if you're not able to really use the emotional body to connect, then you're making decisions that could either hurt other people, that have the absence of empathy or sympathy. You know, you are coming from a place of apathy to maneuver. And this is like in my opinion, like the ego mind likes to be here. A lot of people in their egos just want to be as like, they want to be the smartest person in the room, right? They want to be able to appear so logical and so rational and appear as if they make just so much sense. So this is where the ego mind likes to kind of hang out. The ego mind can be afraid of emotions because emotions are just so jumbly in a sense. So the mental body is so, it can be so practical, and it can preserve itself there, and it can sustain itself, especially in a world where we appreciate logic. It can preserve itself there. So the ego mind can really live off of the mental body. And when someone has blockages there, you will find that they maneuver with their ego a lot more than other people. Of course, we all have an ego and we all need it, and we should all be able to use our egos. We should all be able to use our egos in a balanced way. I think it's all about balance with the ego, because too much of it, you just come off very cold and self-serving. And that's kind of what happens with people that maneuver through life through the mental body, is that they can come off very detached and cold and too logical. Like, too much has to make sense. Maybe not enough creativity. Like, there's no connection really. And the only way sometimes to dissolve mental blockages is to open up the emotional body, to allow them to have access to the emotional body, because then there's a better chance that they'll be able to physically manifest more connection, more abundance in a sense into their lives. Because when you think of like the mentality, it can be so it can be so cutting if you think about it. It can be very straight to the point, straightforward, and it doesn't really have to care what you think of it or what you feel about it, you know, which is even worse, because of course whatever you think is just kind of like whatever you think, but like whatever you feel towards it is going to dictate your response towards it. And having blockages in the mental body can really keep other people from connecting with someone who's blocked in that area. So yeah, I wanted to talk about those different bodies and the blockages that can affect you there. And I think it's just very interesting how you can use certain types of energy work to really balance out each body. You know, you can use energy work for the etheric removal, etheric extraction is what I like to call it. You can use energy work to also heal the physical body. You know, you can do like physical therapy, or you can do like, I like to do like either yoga or strength training. Like, depends on the strength training, right? But you can also use like certain energy work for your emotional body. You can take like either baths, which is like a way of clearing emotional blockages. When you exercise, like just you sweating and getting all that fluid going within you helps the emotional body. It maintains it more than unblocks blockages. It just maintains what you currently have when you're sweating. But when you're like crying and releasing, that's when you're really clearing out those emotional blockages. When you're able to like pinpoint what you're going to like remove, and you actually like cry and you remove it from you because you're releasing it, then you're allowing that free flow of energy within the emotional body, which then when you go to the mental body, you're able to rationalize like why you do certain things. It's because the emotional connection or the lack of emotions, like you can see like why certain things happen. Like you're able to connect more with like why things are, instead of just having common sense, you know, instead of just having logic and a reason like that is just practical. When it comes to mental blockages, you can do energy work. Like, for instance, like I've seen people do meditation and clear mental blockages. I think mental blockages can be removed very well with either inner work or meditations, when you're actually like clearing your mind and you're not allowing your ego mind to distract you anymore, you know, with what makes sense, what's logical, what you should do to self-serve yourself, you know what I mean? Not like any of that stuff. When you're just sitting and you're allowing that part of you to kind of dissolve and back off, so then you can just be in your energy and start to understand your own energy and what parts of you is not able to really tap into the fullest potential of using all those aspects of you, then, you know, you're just able to see and have more clarity as to why things are playing out in your life the way they are. And so I think that using energy work, breath work, body work, and I think there's another one, but inner work to clear all these different blockages, I think those are so it's so easy to do. Of course it's a little hard because no one wants to have to do introspection sometimes, especially when you've gone so long without doing that. You know, you're able to just kind of maneuver through life and you don't have to care whether you hurt people, you just kind of serve yourself. Of course that stuff is like, it's hard to recognize that you are actually hurting people when you're just trying to be. But when you're doing that, you're clearing something out from your spiritual bodies, and your spiritual bodies, like your other spiritual bodies, can then start getting rid of those spiritual blockages. So all that karma that you've attracted because of that way of being, all that karmic debt that you've kind of built because maybe you maneuvered through life with your mental body and you didn't know that you were, in a sense, like being more self-serving and not connecting, and therefore you've attracted a lot of spiritual blockages, karma that isn't serving you. All those things create these spiritual blockages that keep like your spiritual channels from being actually open. So I will get more into that because it can get kind of complicated with me talking about it, especially because I just want to be able to like break down in segments how each body works. So I will talk more about spiritual blockages in a separate video. But thank you for watching, and you take care, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.